All right, let's talk about philosophy. For a lot of people, that word brings up images of old guys in togas talking about things that don't matter. But we're going to throw that stereotype out the window. Because philosophy, when you get right down to it, is actually a super powerful and really practical guide to understanding reality itself. So, let's dive in.
Forget that quiet armchair thinker. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche saw things differently. For him, a philosopher wasn't just thinking. They were handling explosives, ideas so powerful they could put everything we take for granted in danger. I think this is the perfect place to start because it frames philosophy not as some passive hobby, but as an active, world-shaking force.
And this isn't just talk. This is where those explosive ideas get terrifyingly real. Just look at the lead-up to the 2003 Iraq War. These weren't just talking points. They were two completely different philosophies crashing into each other. On one side, you had this idea of liberating a people and spreading democracy. On the other, it was seen as a criminal invasion, pushing Western perversions. These were philosophical arguments with literal life-or-death consequences.
And that really gets to a core truth, doesn't it? So many wars, when you peel back the layers, are fought over ideas. Big ideas about freedom, about justice, about what a good life even is. These aren't just academic questions. They are the very foundation of how we live together and how we fall apart. Philosophy is not a game. It absolutely matters.
So let's just go there. Let's look at some of these so-called dangerous ideas. What are these explosive questions that philosophy makes us face?
You see, the danger isn't just on the big global stage. It's also aimed squarely at your own personal reality. Philosophy asks these really unsettling questions, starting with the most basic ones you can imagine. What is actually real? And how in the world could you ever know for sure?
The field that takes on these giant questions has a fancy name, metaphysics. But don't let the name scare you. All it's really about is the fundamental nature of stuff, of existence itself. It's asking, what is the world really made of? What does it even mean for something to exist? It's like the ultimate zoom out on everything.
Think about the movie The Matrix. The entire plot is one big metaphysical problem, right? How do we tell the difference between what seems real and what is real? It makes you stop and think. Seriously, how do you know this very second that your world isn't some incredibly advanced simulation? This isn't just sci-fi. It's a question that has kept philosophers up at night for centuries.
And this puzzle points right back at us. I mean, let's make it personal. Over the course of your life, almost every single atom in your body gets replaced. So, are you the same person you were when you were 5? This isn't just a weird thought experiment. It has real implications. Should an 80-year-old be punished for a crime they committed at 20 if they're, in a very real sense, a completely different physical person? This is the old ship of Theseus problem, and it makes you wonder what identity even is. So once you start questioning what's real, the next logical step is to ask, okay, well, how can we know anything for sure? That's where a different branch of philosophy, called epistemology, comes in. It's the theory of knowledge itself. And believe me, it gets complicated fast.
Okay, let's try a quick thought experiment. Picture this. You walk downstairs in the morning and you glance at the old grandfather clock in the hallway. It's been reliable for years and it says it's 8:20.
So you believe it's 8:20, and just by chance, let's say it actually is 8:20. Your belief is true and you have a good reason for it. The clock is usually right. So do you actually know what time it is? I think most of us, without skipping a beat, would say, yeah, of course. But here's the twist. You didn't know it, but that clock is broken. It stopped working exactly 24 hours ago, at 8:20. So think about that. Your belief that it's 8:20 is true, and it's justified, but you don't really know the time. You just got lucky. This is what's called a Gettier problem, and it shows that knowledge has to be something more than just a justified true belief. Okay, so we've seen that what we think is real and what we think we know, well, it can be pretty shaky ground. And that uncertainty has huge consequences for how we act. Which brings us to our next big set of questions. How should we live our lives? And how should we live together?
And these are not abstract puzzles. This stuff shapes our most personal choices and our biggest political fights. Do you have an obligation to your family? What's the government even for? Do people just have rights naturally? The answers we come up with for these questions are what separate political parties, what define entire legal systems, and what guide our own lives every single day.
So the branch of philosophy that helps us think through these personal questions is ethics, or moral philosophy. It's not about just handing you a rule book. It's about giving you the tools to figure out why one choice might be right and another might be wrong.
And when you scale those same kinds of questions up to the level of a whole society, that's political philosophy. This is what lets us analyze our communities and our governments and ask those huge questions like, what gives a government its power in the first place?
All right, so we've seen the big, messy, explosive questions that philosophy asks, but how does it even begin to answer them? Well, that's where the philosopher's toolkit comes in. And this is so important. It's about learning how to think, not just being told what to think. At the absolute core of this toolkit, you'll find logic. Logic is what makes philosophy different from just, having an opinion. It's the science of reasoning correctly. It's the tool that lets us build strong arguments, find hidden assumptions in what other people are saying, and create a view of the world that actually makes sense and holds together.
And what's wild is that this toolkit has a really surprising practical payoff. You might think this is all just theoretical, but check out this data. On the GRE, that's the big standardized test for grad school, philosophy majors consistently crush almost everyone else. They score higher than business majors, higher than social science majors. It's pretty incredible.
So, why is that? Well, it's because studying philosophy is basically like taking your brain to the gym. It's a hardcore workout for your analytical skills, your critical reasoning, your ability to communicate clearly. It teaches you how to tackle these giant, messy problems by breaking them down into their component parts, a skill that is unbelievably valuable no matter what you do for a living.
And all of this brings us to our final and maybe most important takeaway today, the wisdom of uncertainty.
I absolutely love this quote from Bertrand Russell. In our world, which is just overflowing with noise and people who are 100% sure they're right, philosophy offers something different. It doesn't promise you all the answers. What it does do is teach you how to live without them, how to act thoughtfully even when you're not certain, without being paralyzed by doubt.
In the end, the real power of philosophy isn't about finding that one final, perfect answer. The power is in the process. It's the practice of challenging what you believe, of uncovering your own hidden assumptions, and of keeping your mind open. It makes us better, sharper, and frankly, more humble thinkers.
So I'll leave you with this question to take with you. Now that you've got a peek inside this toolkit, what assumptions in your own life are you going to start questioning? What hidden philosophical problem about what's real, or what's true, or what's right are you going to uncover today?